Hey guys, so in today's lecture, we are going to start a new chapter, that is chapter 5, Energy and Environment, Air Pollution and Climate Change. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss United Nations framework, United Nations framework for climate change. So what UN, that is the group of nations, that is United Nations framework, is there for climate change. So what its framework, so that we are going to discuss. So in this framework, we will see introduction first, then we will see objectives of this framework. So what are the objectives, then we will see principles, then we will see COP, conference of parties. Then we will see few schemes, that is clean development mechanism, that is CDM, then Bachat Lamp Yojana, BLY, and prototype carbon fund, PCF. So we will see schemes related to the United Nations framework. So let's start with introduction. So UNFCC, so that is climate change and development of UNFCC. So why this was developed? So the Earth's climate has always changed and evolved. So some of these changes are natural, but rest are due to the human activities, as we know. So such as what human activities? So that is deforestation, that we have cut we have cut trees, then emissions, various emissions, which we are injecting into the atmosphere from industry, as well as transportations. There is transportation, which also leads to emission. So these are the human activities which are causing the climate change. So this atmospheric emission of gases and aerosols is being stored in atmosphere, which trap the heat and increase the air temperature near the ground and develop greenhouse effect on the surface of the planet. So since greenhouse effects are produced by these gases and aerosols, they are known as greenhouse gases, GHS. So this greenhouse effect has pushed the world into the mouth of global warming. So due to the global warming, the sea level has risen. So sea level has risen. The snow cover ice sheets and rainfall is adversely affected. Snowfall and all is affected. Further, the shifts in the regional patterns of climate marked by rising air temperatures are already affecting watersheds and ecosystems in many parts of the world. So this has developed challenges for all major countries to cope up with problems of extreme weather. So various other emergencies also to tackle for the for the climate change. So the cost to national economies of coping with extreme weather events, crop failures, and other emergencies related to the climate is growing steadily higher. So, hence low income economies and poor households in developing countries are especially very much vulnerable to adverse effects of climate change combined with normal pressure of poverty. So the living costs are multiplying significantly. That to live is very much costly. Since 1979, so in 1979, first World Climate Conference identified climate change as urgent world problem. So an issued declaration calling on government to anticipate and guard against potential climate hazards. So a world climate program was set up, steered by World Meteorological Organization, the United Nations Environment Program, and the International Council of Scientific Unions, and several intergovernmental conference on climate change followed. So this were the organizations which were built. Then in 1988, it is after 9 years, the second conference was held in Toronto. So where more than 340 participants from 46 countries were gathered and all recommended to develop a comprehensive global framework convention to protect the atmosphere. So, following a proposal by Malta, it is Malta, the UN General Assembly addressed climate change for first time by adopting the resolution 43 out of 53 votes. So, this recognized that climate change is a common concern of mankind. So, since climate is an essential condition which sustains life on Earth, and determine the necessary and timely action should be taken to deal with climate change within a global framework. So, WMO and UNEP established the Intergovernmental Panel on the Climate Change, that is IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, to assess the magnitude and the timing of changes, estimate their impacts, and present strategies for how to respond. So, in 1990, so you can see the timeline after 2 years. So, in 1990, the IPCC published the first assessment report on the state of the global climate, which had a potent effect on policymakers and on public opinion. It became the main basis for negotiation under the UN General Assembly on climate change. So, on 21st December 1990, UN General Assembly established Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, that is INC, for a framework convention on climate change under resolution number 45 by 212. INC met 5 times between February 1991 to March 1992. So that is after 1 year, in span of 1 year, to develop the convention text for further action plan. So they also proposed to the establishment. So here the establishment of UNFCC, that is United Nations Framework for Climate Change, under the banner of UN, which was accepted by worldwide in 1992 by 154 states. Sorry, 154 states. By this way, UNFCC convention enters into force for controlling the climate change. So this is the history of UNFCC. So how it was made. So from 1992 to today, we are the group of country UN has established this organization which which control the climate change. So what are the now we'll discuss various parts of UNFCC. So let's start with objective. So what is the objective of UNFCC? So objectives of UNFCC. So according to the this that article of convention, ultimate objective is to achieve in accordance with the relevant provisions of the convention stabilization of greenhouse gases concentrations. So stabilization of greenhouse gases concentration in the atmosphere at a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate. So this objective is qualified in that it should be achieved within a time frame sufficient to allow ecosystems to adapt naturally to climate change, to ensure that food production is not threatened, and to enable economic development to proceed in a sustainable manner. So, so this was the objective. So, in this statement, it is stating that the objective is that convention reflects concerns that the Earth's climate is threatened by rise in temperature by greenhouse gases concentration, so which is caused by increased anthropogenic GHG emissions. So in the report of IPCC, they estimated about overall rise in temperature due to GHG concentration, as well as what will be the effect of greenhouse gases concentration on nature and human life. So the uh, focus was on reducing emissions of greenhouse gases to a point where their concentration in the atmosphere can be stabilized at an agreed level. Would it is very essential to steep reduction from the current level of emission. So reduction from the current level of emission, since once greenhouse gases are emitted, they remain in the atmosphere considerable length of time. So, for example, CO2, so carbon dioxide, stays in the climate on an average for a century or more, 100 years or more. So, this was the objective of UNFCC. Now, we'll see the limitations of IPCC report. So, what were the limitations that the report IPCC gave? So, we will discuss one by one. So, the convention neither defined a limit for total anthropogenic greenhouse gases emissions which would be respected to reach the objective. So, not limit not defined. So, limit was not defined, which, which would be respected to reach the objective. Nor does it indicate the level of total greenhouse gases concentration beyond which the so there is no upper limit defined, no lower limit was defined. So upper limit is also not defined and lower limit is also not defined, beyond which the dangerous anthropogenic interference with climate system would occur. Also, the convention does not provide a list of greenhouse gases that are to be regulated. So, what are the list of greenhouse gases? that are to be regulated. So we need to regulate carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. What we need to regulate? There are so many greenhouse gases. So which is more and which is to be regulated. So it only refers to CO2, of which there is the greatest quantity of all greenhouse gases. So further other gases were identified in Montreal Protocol. So then in Montreal Protocol, the other gases were identified. So that also contribute to the depletion of the layer of ozone layer. So in Montreal Protocol, the ozone layer depletion gases were identified. For example, chlorofluorocarbon. So that was being reduced. Then second point is, although the convention does not indicate targets for overall limitation or reduction of greenhouse gases emission, so there is no targets that every year how much we need to reduce in order to achieve our goal. So it provides first quantified goal to return their greenhouse gases emissions individually or jointly to 1990s level. That is, whatever the level is was in 1990, we need to reach there. So however, these provisions were judged to be inadequate to the conference of parties, that it is not accurate, that you are giving a year as a comparison but not giving that how much quantity is safe and how much is may create problem in the first session, that is 1995. So this paved the way for negotiating more stringent targets. So next, after Montreal Protocol, in Kyoto Protocol that happened in 1997 contains further quantifications of limits for greenhouse gases emissions, which are also restricted. In Annexure 1, parties cover a relatively narrow time horizon up to 2012. So, a global long term goal for stabilizing greenhouse gases concentration in the atmosphere, along with reductions in emissions necessary to achieve this stabilization, has not yet been agreed upon. So, there are four gases and groups of gases. There are four gases and two groups of gases most concerned for global warming. So that are, first is CO2, carbon dioxide, affects up to 50% to the global warming. Then there is methane, CH4, that accounts around 18%. And then N2O, nitrous oxide, that accounts 6%. And sulfur hexafluoride, that is SF6, that is not quantified how much. Now there is a group of gases that have significant effect of global warming. So that is hydrofluorocarbons and parafluorocarbons. So these are the group of gases having significant effect of global warming. So so this was the limitation of the IPCC report that was published jointly. So what we have seen today, so today we have seen history of UN framework for climate change. Then we have seen objectives of UNFCC, and then we have seen IPCC report limitations. So in that also, so these limitations then were overcome by other protocols, other other reports, that is Kyoto Protocol, then Montreal, before that Montreal Protocol, and so on. So this was the whole history and geography of the climate change in whole world. So thank you very much, and we'll see in the next lecture, that is principles of Unfcc. So thank you very much.